Hello and welcome to another edition of Shoot the Defence on FNX, brought to you by My Sportswear and Save Association. I'm your host, Stel, and I've got three guests with me this evening. First of all, Matthew Crist. How you doing, Matthew? You good?
How you doing, Stel? Good to see you again. And can I just say thanks for the Christmas card I received in the post today. It's the first of the year and the first one I've had for about 15 years, I think.
Is that going to go right? Is that going to go right at the front of the queue, mate?
Well, hang on a minute.
He's got off to get it.
Anyone watching live can see that no expense was spared in the Shoot the Defence office. There
you go. See? I try to do my good deeds every year. And Rhodri, welcome back to the show, mate. How is your sausage and chips?
Delicious. Going down well. Pardon?
Where'd you get them from?
Wilson's Road Chippy.
Wilson's Road.
Big shout out there. Get free chips next time I go.
There you go. And you've got a wonderful Christmas tree as well. You think Jesse Lingard's going to be on the top of the tree? Fantastic. Now, our next guest is Shoot the Defence debutant. It's Richard Foster. Welcome to the show, Richard. How you doing?
Yeah, very well, thanks. I haven't got sausage and chips. I haven't got a Christmas card, but I'm fine.
Oh, don't worry. I'll send you a Christmas card, mate. No, I can't leave you out.
Thank you.
I can't leave you out. Richard, before we go into the show, tell us about your new book.
It came out early last month. It's called Football's Flaws and Foibles. I just look at all the things that when you're looking at football, you spend a lot of time looking at football. There are certain things that really annoy you. And so there's things like players taking selfies. Possibly the one that got me most is plane protests. Why would anyone spend upwards of £1,000 to fly a plane over a ground to have a go at their manager? I still haven't found anyone who can explain that to me.
I can't give you an honest answer, but I presume it's just modern day football.
But there are a lot of them, aren't there? We had the famous one. I think it was at West Brom, wasn't it? When there were two Arsenal planes, one saying Wenger in, one saying Wenger out. I mean, it was like, World War One. It's against, whoever. So it's just a madness, isn't it?
That was the Arsenal hokey cokey, though, wasn't it?
It's a bit like that, yeah. So it's a light-hearted. It's a stocking filler. That's what it is, and it's available in all good shops and even.
Fantastic. And can you get it as like an audio book, or is it just on Kindle?
No, not yet. Actually, I was talking to my publisher the other day. We might be getting into audio books because apparently it's quite a big thing. So I've done a couple of books with him, so we might be setting off down that road. But at the moment, it's just good old-fashioned paperback, $9.99. Chuck it in your stocking, have a giggle.
Fantastic. I think I'll get my hands on that. I need something to read on the way to work. That tube journey is a bit of a killer, isn't it, Matt?
I wouldn't know, mate. I wouldn't know. A 12-minute walk to work for me.
All right, for some. Well, great stuff. Well, guys, let's go into the weekend's games. And Manchester United ended Arsenal's 100% home record with a 3-1 victory in a highly entertaining encounter. Not many people thought it would be like that, did they? Now, United looked out of sight in the opening quarter for now, going 2-0 up following some dreadful defending. But the early goal sparked Arsenal into life as they bombarded United for the majority of the game. David De Gea took the plaudits with some outstanding saves, while Lingard won man of the match for having netted twice. Now, Rod, mate, it wouldn't be an Arsenal-United game without any talking points, and this one didn't go without incident. What did you actually make of United's start to the game and how they coped with Arsenal's response?
Well, it was a great start to the game. Obviously, they're scoring early, but they've obviously set the stall out early, pressured them by them playing out at the back, and it's reaped rewards by them getting an early goal. And obviously, we know how well United can defend, and they did that with abundance because, I say they did that with abundance. David De Gea did help him out because he had a fantastic game, but, that's why he's arguably world number one. But, it was like I say, it was an entertaining game. It was a good game. Both teams could have won it, but, United have come out in the end, and it was a good game, all in all. I was surprised with Arsenal because, they've set their standard now from last week and building on from that. They played well. They could have got arguably a lot more goals with 33 attempts on goals. You'd expect more goals from one goal from 33 shots, but David De Gea was on form and we got the 3 points.
And you mentioned United pressing Arsenal higher. Were you surprised with the amount of mistakes that they made at the back, especially so early on in the game? Or was it because it was so early that United got those goals? Because Arsenal didn't seem to settle at the beginning, did they?
We see it time and time again. If you start off bright like that and you're pressing numbers, and obviously Arsenal were a bit laxy-daisy, a bit careless in the passing, and we reap the rewards and we punished them.
Absolutely. And Richard, Arsene Wenger praised his side's attitude, saying they had enough chances to come back. Now, as Rhodri said, De Gea made 14 saves, although I can't actually help but think it was more a case of Arsenal's finishing being poor. What's your take on this in the game as a whole?
I must say, I thought it was a great game. It was high risk, high octane, because normally the games between the big boys a little bit cagey, but this one, as you say, I mean, obviously Man United were 2-0 up very early, but Arsenal kept coming at them. I've got to say, I thought Arsenal played really well, and you could argue they're a bit unlucky, but their finishing, De Gea was obviously brilliant, and I think he is by far and away the best goalkeeper in the Premier League, if not in European football. But you just think about the goal that Arsenal scored. What was Ramsey really doing there? Was he really intending to play it back to Lacazette? He was about 2 yards from the goal. I just thought he miscued that, and it happened to end up at Lacazette's feet. And that's the problem for Arsenal. If you don't have the killer instinct, and I think Lacazette he's settled in pretty well, but Arsenal don't have that goal scorer. Sanchez, he's gone off a little bit, hasn't he? And the suggestions are he's going to be away soon. They just don't have a player that you think is going to score 20-odd goals this season. And Giroud, I find it amazing he's on the bench, because I still rate him as a striker very highly. But, the Arsenal fans go on about, we're never going to win anything, and I'm afraid I have to agree with them at the moment, because they're too far behind already, and they've had that amazing run at home. I think they've had 12 successive wins at the Emirates.
That's right.
But they've got, you can't give Man City that sort of gap of how many points it is now and catch it up, because you can't really envisage Man City losing too many games in the coming months.
The thing is, Richard, I know a lot of Arsenal fans feel that they're a couple of players away from mounting a serious title challenge. But, I mean, what if Sanchez and Ozil go? How many players are they far away then?
Well, I just don't feel they've got the resolve and the steely core that, say Man United's got. Man City obviously got... Their forward play is sometimes mesmerising and almost unstoppable. But you don't feel Arsenal have either got a solid defence, and there are some horrendous errors made, particularly those first two goals. They don't have that, and I just don't think they've got the magic forward line. So I'm afraid, unless they really buy some amazing players to replace the likes of Ozil and Sanchez, if they do indeed leave, I still think they're miles away from challenging for the title.
I couldn't agree more, to be fair. Like I said before, there's a lot of Arsenal fans that feel that they're a couple of players away, but when you look at Peter Cech, he's not the same goalkeeper as what he was.
No, absolutely right, yeah.
I don't know how long Monreal can play at centre-back. Koscielny isn't this world beater that they claim he is. I mean, he gets brushed off like a packet of quavers every time. And then you got Xhaka, who I think is a good footballer, but being a good footballer isn't enough. You need a lot more in your locker, which he doesn't have. And, then there's the conundrum with Sanchez and Ozil. If they go, who comes in? So Lacazette is sitting there thinking, well, I've got two potentially world-class players supplying me chances, and they're going to go. So he's going to be sitting on his hands as well at some point, I guess. Now, Matt, United were unchanged from the side that beat Watford midweek, which meant Lingard retained his place. Now, he scored twice and caused Arsenal all sorts of trouble with his movement on the counter. Is he finally coming of age?
Yeah, I think you could say he probably is. I think that's a good way of putting it, because you've got to remember he's been at the club now a fair few years, and he was basically a kid when he came to the club. And but saying that, Louis van Gaal obviously had faith in him and tried to play him where possible, and Mourinho the same. Obviously likes him, tries to give him a chance when he can. did fantastically well in the week, obviously, and I think, to be honest, there's no coincidence that he's doing better since the return, albeit a brief return now, of Paul Pogba. I think Pogba in the team basically does a lot of the dirty work, so to speak, that frees up Lingard to sort of settle into that attacking position rather than being sucked back into the middle of the park, trying to win everything and fight for the ball. With someone like Pogba in the team, I think you've got a player there that's perfect for winning the ball, getting possession back, and then feeding it on to Lingard in this case. And I don't think also it's a coincidence that he's blossomed with players like Mata and your friend Mkhitaryan falling out of favour, so to speak, with not finding the best form, you could say. And as he's taken that place that Mkhitaryan would play, the number 10 role, so to speak, rather than being out wide, he seems to be almost have found his natural position, I suppose. And I think when he first came to the team, he was looked upon as a more wide player, which he could obviously still play that role. But maybe shifting him into the centre suits him, and it benefits the club from what we've seen this week, certainly.
That's right. That's right. Now, gents, we spoke about Arsenal's character last week, and Mustafi went off injured moments after his mistake led to United's second. It seems a bit convenient, doesn't it? What do you reckon, Richard?
Yeah, you do feel that was almost like a concession of how badly he screwed up. And it's almost like he couldn't face up to it. I don't think that what the injury was, he claimed, but it did look a bit limp, didn't it? A bit lame to make that mistake and then suddenly go down and go, oh, I can't continue. And maybe that's the soft centre we've been talking about at Arsenal. They won't do that. I mean, you wouldn't get one of the old guard like Tony Adams, Martin Keown doing that. I just don't see it. They would struggle on and do it, but he basically put his hands up and went, I've had enough of this.
That's right. And Matt, what do you think?
Yeah, I think it goes back to one of Richard's bugbears of sensitive modern day footballers, really. I mean, we saw it a few weeks ago with Dejan Lovren, didn't we? I know he didn't go down injured, but he had a bit of a torrid first half against Tottenham playing for Liverpool, and he was taken off straight away, almost to save his save face, really. And whether this was an injury or not, I'm not sure. But I think it's more a case of a manager thinking if he makes another mistake, he'll probably break down in tears. So we'll rescue the guy before he suffers any more. But I like Richard said there, I can't see a player like Tony Adams or Steve Bruce or Gary Pallister or any of those being taken off or feigning injury when they made a mistake. They'd want to get straight back into the game and try and put it right, I would say. That might be doing him a disservice. He might be injured, but if we suggest he's not, then I think it does fall into that modern day player category of not wanting to hurt their feelings too much.
Rod, did he bottle it?
Yeah, like the lad said, it's the modern day football. He's made a mistake and he's took the easy way out. In my eyes, he looked like he'd been shot, but it looked like something or nothing. But yeah, it's the modern day football, the mentality. You can imagine Martin Keown and Tony Adams just shaking their head, couldn't you?
Absolutely. Now, another question to you, gents. Pogba's dismissal with a quarter of an hour remaining made absolutely no difference to the scoreline in the end. Did Andre Mariner make the right call, Matt?
Well, it didn't make an impact in the last 15 minutes of the game, but it certainly made an impact on Sunday's game. So that's one major talking point. But yeah, I think he made the right call. It's one of those fouls that looks a lot worse in slow motion, doesn't it? I think anyone watching the game at the time probably thought, oh, why has he dished out a red card there? And then as soon as you see the replay and the foot going down on the back of the leg there, it's a red card all day long. And it falls into that category of endangering an opponent, doesn't it? You don't always have to mean it. There doesn't always have to be an intent. And if he's going to go in like that and go over the ball with his studs up and he misses the ball and gets the guy's leg, again, modern day football, it's going to be a sending off. So I think United have done the right thing by not appealing it. I don't think in this day and age you'd ever get that overturned. I think it was a red card all day long, to be honest. So stupid and could be very costly. particularly for Sunday. I think the couple of games after that might not be so damaging, but we've seen when Pogba was out injured for those few weeks at the beginning of the season, what a difference it made. So United are in a position now where they pretty much have to win every game to keep up to speed with City. So if someone like Pogba missing out costs United in a couple of games, and that could be league challenge over, I think. So very costly, but the correct decision, I would say. Yeah.
Richard, did that challenge make you wince?
Yeah, again, as Matt quite right points out, it often looks a lot worse explanation, doesn't it? But he did stand, I think, and you can't defend that. The fact that Man United didn't appeal it suggests that he really is on pretty shaky ground. And yeah, Pogba, fantastic player. I mean, incredible talent, but that is just a mad thing to do when you're 3-1 up, and he's not a young kid anymore. He's in his mid-20s. You shouldn't be doing that. It's just a really, really silly thing to do. And I bet Mourinho tore him off the strip because, as Matt points out, he'll be a big miss on Sunday for their biggest match of the season. And if United don't beat City on Sunday, I think it's almost they might as well put the blue and white ribbons around the trophy, because this is their chance to get to City. If they don't win it, I think it's pretty much done and dusted. And it's a bit silly to say that in December the 5th or whatever, but I really do think that's the case.
Yeah, that's a fair point. Rod, can you defend him? I wouldn't say defend him, but can you see why he went in for a challenge like that? I mean, did it seem?
To me, Stel, you're looking at it at full pace. It doesn't look that bad, but when you slow it down, it looks like Matthew said, it looks terrible. But for me, he's just trying to nick the ball. If you can see his foot bends, if it's to touch it with his outside foot, he misses it. But then he could have reacted a little bit better because he stamped and seemed to have followed through. And that's obviously made it worse. If he knows he's going to stamp him, he could have made it a little bit more painful for the lad, but he just carried on going through. And to me, it was a definite red card and a massive, massive miss for us on Sunday, because they're firing all cylinders at the minute, and without Paul Pogba, we're a much less a weaker team.
That's right. No, the stats show that. You're right there, Rod. To be fair.
Yeah, well, you can see it, mate. He frees Matic up. He obviously gives that protection for the other lads behind him. And, just people forget Jesse Lingard's played with Paul Pogba for 5 or 6 years, so they know how people play. So that's maybe helps him when he plays, and it obviously did on Sunday.
Yeah, well, Herrera played the majority of the game tonight, and he was taken off, so I think he's going to start at the weekend, isn't he?
Say again, sorry, mate. You caught them.
Herrera played most of the game today, but then he was taken off, so I think he'll be playing against City.
Yeah, whoever they put in, they're going to be the shadow of Paul Pogba, because he's been brilliant this year, and he was brilliant again tonight. Exactly.
Now, Paul Pogba sending off means he'll miss the Manchester derby, as we said, and judging by United's win percentage without Pogba in the team, it looks like it will be league win number 14 on the bounce for City. Win number 13 came thanks to an acrobatic David Silva winner against a stubborn and well-drilled West Ham. Richard, City have ground out 3 wins on the bounce, and Silva's goal in the 83rd minute means they've salvaged 9 points from that minute until the end of the game. It's actually very difficult to see anyone catching them on this form, isn't it?
Yeah, because they do, earlier in the season they were hammering people, and as a Palace fan, they hammered us 5-0 without really getting out of second gear, and they've hammered a few other people, but, it's the sign of real champions when you get those late goals, as Alex Ferguson can testify. If you can keep strong and look good in the last 10 minutes, then it just suggests that there is a bit more to Man City than just being an amazing attacking team. They do have that sort of determination and that will to keep going. And it was almost inevitable. I mean, I know West Ham did pretty well considering how badly they've been playing, but it was almost inevitable that goal was coming and the pressure was on, and you just felt it's going to be the same as it has been for the last 2 or 3 games. They will get a late goal and that'll be it. And, those really tight 2-1 wins with late goals are quite often what win you the Premier League, not the 5-0 hammerings of teams, but the close wins.
That's right. And Matt, West Ham took the lead from a set piece, which City failed miserably to deal with. Now, is that the best way to get at them? I mean, I read a stat today that City have only conceded a couple goals this season from set pieces, so it's not as if they're really weak defensively.
No, but I think it's the only chink of daylight, really, if you're playing City now, especially if you're a struggling team down the bottom. And I think for all their attacking prowess, they can still look a little bit vulnerable at the back. Whether that's because they don't really need to do anything in the back at the minute, I don't know. Maybe the way they're playing this season, it's more a case of attack, and you think so, the way they're battering people. But you do get the feeling with City, if you can just keep them quiet for the first 15, 20 minutes and then just have a good go at their fullbacks, they do look a little bit vulnerable. I mean, I don't know how. I mean, the keeper looks pretty solid, but they're almost like a boxer that comes out steaming out after on the bell of the first round and has their opponent against the ropes, and teams just don't get the chance to counter them. But I think, and you might see this on Sunday with United, is if you have a go at them down the flanks, it'd be interesting to see how they cope with it. And of course, with things like free kicks and corners and anything around the box, you can get that chance to whip the ball in and see how they defend or how they cope with it. But like we said, usually in that stage, they're usually 2 or 3 goals up, so it's usually irrelevant. But I'd certainly be saying, if I was Mourinho on Sunday, have a go at them, try and get down the flank, try and get a cross in, because it's almost a lost art now, getting to the line and crossing the ball in and seeing how defenders cope with it. And it always seems to cause some kind of mix-up in the defence. I mean, we've spoken before about Liverpool's defence struggling with crosses and struggling with corners. So if City are as good as they seem and as good as everyone thinks they are, it might be the only way you can. It might be their only Achilles heel, really. So I would be saying, get on the front foot and try and force a mistake out of a defence that's rarely tested.
Yeah, well, Company was on the bench at the weekend. I think he was only 1 booking away from a suspension, so I think that's why Guardiola chose to bench him for the West Ham game. So he'll be ready for United, because he probably knows that if Matic is going to be fit, if Fellaini's going to be fit, Lukaku's big and strong. So those are 3 big target men anyway from set pieces. But Rod, the new manager bounce hasn't hit West Ham yet, but no such luck at Everton, as the Big Sam theory was in full effect. A convincing and impressive 2-0 win for Everton against Huddersfield. They're in safe hands now, aren't they? To Rhodri.
Oh, was that for me? Sorry, mate. It's got to be down. Some of it's got to be down to Paul Hunter, because even though they had a few bad results, he turned it around. I know Sam was there, and they got it. It might have been because Sam was there, but behind the scenes, he's been doing a really good job, Paul Hunter, and the players have let him down, to be fair. And we know all about Sam Allardyce. It might just be a right fit for Everton. It might just be because he's never really had the funds and had the players to go on to that next level. We didn't see it, obviously, in England because of his mishaps and what happened there. But, at Bolton, he did a good job. Wherever he's done, we know what Sam Allardyce is about, but can he go to that next level now? And he seems to have got some good players there, and he just needs to sort it out and obviously sort that ageing defence out, because I think that's the problem at Everton.
Right. Now, Richard, speaking of Allardyce, he's brought in a couple of his disciples in Sammy Lee and Craig Shakespeare as part of his backroom staff, although the decision to appoint him as head coach was met with a bit of discontent by some Everton fans. Why do you think this is so?
Well, I think it's Allardyce has this the long ball tag, doesn't he? But obviously, I saw him arrive at our club in December last year, and the thing was, I wasn't particularly enthusiastic about it. I didn't really particularly look forward to a team under Allardyce, but he does get your team organised, and he does get your defence a bit tighter. And I don't think Everton are going to be anywhere near relegation because they're too good a team. But he's just one of those people. They talk about Everton School of Science. They've got this image of playing, a rather more attractive style. But Allardyce isn't anti that. He's just, he does really focus on the idea of being solid at the back, making sure that everyone works hard and knows their position. And that's, I don't think that's anti-football, but it, you know, the image does follow him around that he's going to be a little bit dour, maybe because he was a big chunky centre back without any skills. But he will do a job at Everton. I think it's interesting that he's only signed an 18-month contract. So that suggests he's not exactly in it for the long term. Because let's face it, he told us when he left us that he would be, you know, he's retiring. He's had enough. So the good news for us is we've got £2 million coming our way, because that was part of the deal that Parish had with Allardyce. If he went to another club, we get £2 million. So I do think he'll be very effective, but I never thought Everton were really going to get dragged into this. You know, they just needed to get themselves organised, and they've got the right man to do that.
The thing is, I remember when he was appointed West Ham manager, and you know, I think they were in the Championship in his first full season, weren't they?
We might have gone down with them, but he certainly brought them up.
Yeah, and I remember they beat Barnsley. Was it 4 or 5-0 away from home, and yet the fans were still complaining about the style of football. Then you look at Everton, who, you know, in terms of a fan mentality of what they expect to see on the pitch, it's pretty much the same sort of thing. So when I see players like Morgan Schneiderlin, if Allardyce can make him look like a £50 million player, which, you know, the money United and Everton spent on him combined, then give him a knighthood.
Yeah, I mean, he will get the best out of those players. That's what Allardyce does. So he will make a difference. I think it's a bit unfair on Unsworth. You know, the players really let him down, I think what we said, and they didn't perform to their heights. If you don't perform to your best with Allardyce, you're out. So, you know, that isn't going to happen. You don't last very long if you're not really performing to your optimum, and therefore, you know, those players will perform better, and they'll be at their top form.
That's right. Now, Matt, a war of words ensued between Sam Allardyce and Watford manager Marco Silva. Big Sam said there was no comparison between Silva's record and his because he got Hull relegated. Now, Silva replied with, go and see what he was doing when he was 40 years old, or see what he was doing in his first 7 seasons as a coach. Then look at what I'm doing at the same age. Or maybe you can wait until I'm 63, then we can compare what I've done. It's becoming a bit of an interesting rivalry, isn't it?
Well, it is, and I don't really know where it's come from, to be honest. But when we spoke earlier and we discussed what we were going to talk about here, I remembered that Allardyce, he has got a bit of previous when it comes to winding up other managers, hasn't he? Do you remember he went and got a result at Chelsea and Mourinho got upset and he was loving that, and then he got in a row with Van Gaal when Van Gaal came to West Ham, and Allardyce said that Van Gaal was a long ball merchant, and Van Gaal produced some document proving how many short passes there were, or long passes or whatever. He does seem to thrive on having a wind-up. And I just don't see... The funny thing about this is I don't really see why they're having a spat. I mean, it's obviously to do with the link with the Everton job, but it's almost like they've got two agents that are trying to cause a row out of nothing. It almost reminds me of the Blur versus Oasis rivalry in the mid-90s when it was almost like you couldn't like one or the other, and I don't really see why these two would be going at it with each other, because one's been there and done it and it's been successful, you could argue, and is 63 years of age, and one's in his 40s, or a 40-year-old who's setting out on the long road of football management. So it's a bit like comparing apples and oranges, really. I'm not really sure why this war of the words has come about. I assume it was brought up in some press conference or interview or something going back to the issue with the Everton job. So I suppose we'll only know whether it gets more tasty when the two face each other on the touchline, and whenever that is. I assume it won't be for a while now, because Everton played Watford a few weeks ago, didn't they? But it's just, I just can see it. There's some kind of media concocted rivalry. Like I say, a bit like the Blur Oasis thing for me. It's not something I think is a particularly worthwhile story to keep an eye on, really.
Fair point. Well, Everton have won their previous 2 games, and Liverpool made easy work of Brighton, putting 5 past them. So, the question for all of you guys: how do you think next week's Merseyside derby will go, Rod?
Oh, that's a difficult question. Where's it? Which way is it at? Is it Anfield?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, well, it's difficult for anyone at Anfield, but Everton haven't got really a good record there in the past, so I shouldn't see that changing. By the way, Liverpool look really, really exciting going forward, but then again, Sam Allardyce, if he gets them organised, and you've got Wayne Rooney shooting on all cylinders like he was on the weekend, anything can happen, but it'd be really, really tough at Anfield at the minute because they've got all the players are back and looking sharp at the minute, so. It's always tough at Anfield. Keep them quiet the next 15 minutes, get an early goal. Anything can happen, but it's going to be tough for Everton.
Richard, what do you think?
Sort of challenge that Allardyce loves, isn't it? He loves taking teams to, when they're not expected to win and stifling the other team and giving them a hard time and getting that win. I agree. I think Liverpool are the better team. But I don't know really, and Everton have got a pretty poor record, as you say. So probably your head says it's going to be Liverpool because of that attacking force. The fact that they've got Coutinho, they've got Firmino, they've got something. They even had Mane on the bench the other day. He couldn't get in the team, which seems ridiculous. But I just think Allardyce is just going to relish that, and I wouldn't be surprised if Everton got something out of it.
Matthew?
Yeah, well, obviously, Everton haven't got a good record at Anfield. Their last win at Anfield was September 1999. It was actually my 26th birthday, so that shows how long ago that was. But I tell you what, if I was an Evertonian, I'd be more optimistic going into this game with Allardyce in charge. A couple of weeks ago, the state they were in, with certainly under Koeman, and then in the early days of the caretaker manager there, I thought Liverpool would tear them apart. But like some of the guys said, with Allardyce, I think he might thrive on a challenge like this. I can see him going to Anfield, setting up. I mean, his thing is organisation, isn't it? So I can see him really getting that defensive unit organised, keeping it tight, and then maybe doing what I was saying about City. Maybe say, look, they might be great going forward, but these guys have got a reputation for being shocking at the back. So let's play for free kicks around the box. Let's try and win corners, and let's try and get it under the crossbar and try and shake them up a bit. Don't be too scared of them. And I think Allardyce is the kind of manager that would. I wouldn't be surprised if they went there and got a draw. And I might be the only one here in Liverpool saying that at the minute, but I'd say a couple of weeks ago I wouldn't have given them a chance. But someone like Allardyce, he's been there, he's done it, he specialises in doing the best with what he's got available to him. And like you said, you've got players like Schneiderlin, you've got players like Rooney, you've got Sigurdsson, you've got a good bunch of players there. And if you've got a manager that can tell them exactly what they need to do and where they need to go, I wouldn't put it past them to get something, because we've seen teams go to Anfield this season and get results. So Burnley went there and got a draw. Seville obviously scored a couple of goals and got a 2-2, and they're notoriously shaky even at home. So as much as they scare me because they're going forward and they're banging in the goals, I think the best way to get at them is to ruffle them up a bit. And I don't think there's anyone better at doing that than Sam Allardyce, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned that he likes to get under manager's skin. Can you imagine him and Jurgen Klopp? Wow, that would be box office.
I can imagine the cameras will be trained fully on that touchline for most of Sunday afternoon.
That's right. Well, guys, Spurs battled hard for a draw at Watford. They've only taken 5 points from a possible 15 in the league, though, since beating Real Madrid at the beginning of November. Is this a blip, or should Spurs fans be a little bit concerned? What do you think, Richard?
Yeah, I think it is actually. I think actually, wasn't it, that when he had his book published, their forwards and centres been pretty poor. Pochettino's got a great reputation. Everyone says he's a fantastic manager and he's bringing through the young players. But a little like Arsenal, you just think they're not the finished product. They're not quite going to reach the heights to challenge for the title, and they should be in and around the top four, but you just don't see them being above Man United, Man City, or Chelsea at the moment. It's just they're not convincing on every level. I don't know why. I mean, Eriksen's gone slightly off the boil. Obviously, Kane is a fantastic goal scorer, but he's had a little bit of a dry period, and I just think Ali again. He's a bit mercurial, isn't he? He can be absolutely fantastic, or he can be quite poor. And also, with Ali, I worry about his temperament. I just think, we were talking about that Pogba tackle earlier, the sort of thing that Ali would do. And I'm not convinced that they are a team that will, at the moment, and I'm not saying it won't happen in the future, I'm just not convinced they're going to make it to the top just yet.
Rod?
Yeah, I'm the same with Richard. They've not, in the last 2 years they've done really well, but they've dropped off this year. Obviously, the crowd, the changing of stadiums not helped them by moving to Wembley, even though they've picked up there. But like Richard said, Kane's dropped off, Eriksen's dropped off, Ali's not been the best. Walker and Rose last year were firing all cylinders. Even though Ben Davies and Trippier have done okay, they just haven't got the strength in depth for me. So I don't see him this year being in the top four at all. There's a lot more stronger sides. I think Chelsea, Liverpool, and City, and obviously ourselves, are much stronger than Tottenham in a minute. I put Tottenham in the bracket of Arsenal.
Okay, interesting. Matt?
Yeah, I don't think it's a blip. I think it's a series of blips, isn't it? I mean, they've had some fantastic results this season. I mean, that Liverpool game a few weeks ago, I thought, after watching that, well, they're the best team in the league. And same with their performances against Madrid and Dortmund. But they seem to struggle with the sort of lesser games, don't they? And we've seen that before in the past with teams like maybe Liverpool 4 or 5 years ago. They would raise their game for the big occasion, the big European nights, and then they would go and draw 1-1 against Southampton the following game. And Tottenham seem to be doing that. And I think this shows how reliant they are on players like Kane and Ali. And when they're flying, they're absolutely flying. But when they're not doing so well, like Ali at the moment seems to have got off the boil, they don't seem to have that sort of squad that if one player's not doing too well, someone can dig them out and back them up and chip in. They seem to, it's all or nothing really. They seem to all be firing at once and blow teams out of the water, or they're all off the boil, and then they struggle and they get poor results, like drawing at Watford and drawing at home to Burnley. So I just think they are some way behind these sort of super squads that we're seeing that teams like City have got. I suppose to some extent United, where you can say, right, Mkhitaryan's having a poor run of form, we'll take him out and we'll slot someone else in there who can do a job and liven up the team. They seem to be very reliant on 2 or 3 players who, if they're not at the top of their game, then the rest of the team suffers. And they do need to really go on a bit of a run now, because if they don't, they're going to drop away. I mean, they're already dropping away now, aren't they? I mean, a few weeks ago we were talking about them winning the league, and now they're 5th, are they, or 6th? So how they can do that, I don't know. I mean, whether they'll look to buy someone in January, but it seems to be more of a confidence thing than anything with Tottenham. They seem to, it's almost like they feel they're not quite ready to be this team that everyone thinks they could be.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what you guys feel about this, because for me, Spurs now, it's like welcome to the big boys league kind of thing, in the sense that they've been challenging for top 4, they've been challenging for the title. Now teams are looking at Spurs and they see them as a threat, and they're going into the games like your Leicesters, like your Watfords, like your West Broms, and they're looking at Spurs saying, right, they're a very good team, but let's get at them. Let's frustrate them. Let's do things that we do at Old Trafford. Let's do what we do at Anfield. Let's stifle them, see what we can do, and get something out of this game. And I don't think Spurs have. They're not used to it, really. Their players aren't used to it. Teams are looking at Harry Kane, they're looking at Dele Alli, they're looking forward to playing against them. They're going to Wembley, they're looking forward to playing at Wembley. And I think it's a totally different animal. And the same thing will probably happen when they move into the new stadium. Same with Arsenal. Arsenal have suffered so much since moving into that new stadium. I think the same might happen at Spurs. What do you think, Richard?
Yeah, I mean, it's a pretty well-known fact that when you move to a new stadium, it's actually quite tricky because generally teams will raise their game, particularly, obviously Tottenham at Wembley, which most of us, in the old days, you only got to Wembley if you got to the FA Cup final. Now you can go there in the League, Cup, semi-finals of this, semi-finals of that. But I think the white hot lane factor is really important in Tottenham's loss of form this season. In that, I think they lose just one game last season at home, even if that. And they dropped more points already this season at home than they did the whole of last season. White Hart Lane, we've all been to that ground. It used to be intense, intimidating. You don't get that at Wembley. It's you're too far from the pitch. You don't get the same atmosphere. It's not intimidating in the same way that White Hart Lane was. And as you say, when Arsenal moved from Highbury to the Emirates, same thing. You lost any real sense of the crowd being at you because the Emirates it's like going to a hotel. I've been there the past few times, and it's just amazingly quiet and eerily quiet for a football ground. So yeah, I think that there are problems with moving to a new ground that doesn't have the sort of atmosphere that you had at your previous ground.
Fair point. Fair point. Well, let's move briefly on to the Champions League because there's a few games played tonight and no real surprises. Although I'd say the one that stood out the most was Atletico Madrid not qualifying for the next round. They drew with Chelsea, ended third in the group. Another team that's actually moved to a new stadium. Funny enough, Matt, are you surprised with Roma topping the group?
Well, I wouldn't be. I'm not ever surprised really with teams of that calibre in the Champions League. I mean, you've got to assume they're all decent sides. So it's just, I'm surprised Chelsea didn't top that group. To be honest, I thought under Conte they would be, almost a European specialists. And I think the way they started that group, I thought, well, they'll blitz that group. So I'm probably surprised Chelsea came second. But yeah, at the beginning of the season, I think you'd definitely put Chelsea and Atletico Madrid in as your two sides to go through. Obviously tonight they had to beat Chelsea and hope that Roma slipped up to get through, which is never a good combination, is it, when you're in European football, having to rely on other teams to do you a favour. And obviously the damage was done in earlier rounds when they dropped points, and you can never really make it up again, can you? Once you drop points and you find yourself relying on other teams, and it is a bit of a surprise. But then European football is cyclical in a way, isn't it? You can't. The Champions League is quite predictable, but then it surprises you in some ways. Just when you think it can't, you start to see teams suddenly becoming the new top dogs in Europe. I mean, everyone now thinks it's going to be Paris or even Manchester City. So you can't just base your knowledge of European football on names and what they've done in the past, really, can you? That's the way I look at it. I think you should never really assume that teams are going to progress just because of who they are. And obviously, Atletico Madrid have had their problems. And I'm going to finish with a cliche, but the league table never lies, doesn't it? If you finish third in a group of four, you're obviously not good enough to go through. Yeah.
The thing is, the way it stands at the moment, every English team will top the group apart from Chelsea, which means that Chelsea can't face Roma. They can't face any of the English teams in the next round. So they'll either play Besiktas, Paris Saint-Germain or Barcelona.
Yeah, but that could be costly, couldn't it? I mean, it's one of those things that you always think in the very early stages of the Champions League, you think, oh, it's boring. A lot of it is. I mean, there's some group games there that there's some teams on 0 points, like
5.
But it could be costly. I mean, the second place thing is a big deal because if you win your group, obviously you can almost take your pick of who you're playing in the second round. But like you say, those three teams that Chelsea could be facing, you certainly wouldn't put your mortgage on them beating any of them. Maybe Besiktas, but if any of the other two come out, then it could be an early exit for Chelsea.
Richard, do you fancy any of the English teams to win the Champions League apart from City?
I don't really. I mean, you can usually you talk about sort of predictability of it. I mean, Barca, Bayern Munich, and obviously Juventus in the more recent issue, and obviously Real Madrid. Atletico going out was a surprise, but they're not part of that pantheon of teams who are always in the Champions League. They've obviously been very good under Simeone over the last couple of years. But I think City are, in terms of English clubs, the only credible candidates. But again, I just wonder if I do think, people talk about the quadruple. In fact, I mentioned it in the book. I just think it's impossible to win the quadruple. It's mad. Stop talking about the quadruple. It's not going to happen because you're going to have the odd off night, and you're just not going to win every competition you enter, and it would be ridiculous for it to happen. So you're gonna stumble in one competition. I think City may well get through to possibly the semi-finals, but I actually don't see them making it all the way to winning it. However much we'd like an English club to win it, I can't see it happening.
Interesting. And Rod, what do you make of United's Champions League campaign? It's been pretty straightforward, apart from the loss at Basel the other week, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was pretty straightforward. You'd expect that with the players we've got now and the squad we've got, and obviously the manager's experience in there. But for me, we've seen it over the years. Anyone from in English to English League can win it for me. That Real Madrid have not been that great this year. Barcelona, okay. Paris Saint-Germain, they're the two teams that you'd be worried about. But they're not as strong as they have been in the past. And teams like Manchester City, United, Liverpool, over two legs, they can beat anyone on the day. But it's going to be tough because when they get to the quarterfinals and semi-finals, that's when the teams like Real Madrid, Barcelona, Bayern Munich, they step on the foot on the gas and the quality comes out. So it's going to be difficult. But yeah, there's at least two or three for me English teams that can win the Champions League.
It's tournament football now, isn't it? Once you're through that group, it's a bit like in a World Cup or a European Championship. Once you get through, I know it's obviously two legs, so it's not like a straight knockout. But all those English clubs really have got managers who are experienced in winning or going a long way in international or European tournament football. Klopp did it with Dortmund. He got into the final, didn't he? Mourinho's obviously been there before. Guardiola. So it's. I don't think it, like you say, people can laugh and say, "Oh no, they've got no chance." But I mean, God, remember what Benitez did with a very ordinary Liverpool side in 2005, and we've seen some pretty ordinary teams progress to at least the semi-final, the final. So I agree. I wouldn't put it past anyone to make a bit of a run for it. And if you get the luck of the draw as well, I think you could easily find yourself in a semi-final, and then you just go for it, then, don't you?
Exactly, and the draw is going to be even more interesting, especially with Real Madrid possibly ending second. They could face City in the next round. You never know. It'll be an interesting one again. Now, let's move on to our other news section. And on the eve of Rino Gattuso's first game in charge of Milan, he said, "When I lost the match, I broke down in frustration. Today, players lose, take a selfie, and put it on the internet. They make me sick." And I'm sure they make Richard sick too, judging by your book as well, mate. Now, I'm not sure if any of his players dared to get their phones out at full time on Sunday. The Rossoneri were 2-1 up at bottom club Benevento when a 95th-minute free kick was headed in by goalkeeper Alberto Brignoli. Now, Matt, we've seen goalkeepers score last cast equalisers in the past, mate, but how do you think this will impact Milan? I mean, let's not forget Benevento was on a 14-game losing streak prior to this game.
Well, I don't know if it will impact on Milan because, I mean, from what I'm no Italian football expert, by the way, but from what I've seen of that league, I mean, they're well out there. They're ninth or eighth in the table, so I can't see them really doing anything now other than building for next season. Obviously, with the new manager there, I think this can probably just be put down as a bit of a freak result, really. But I'd say if there's one manager that's going to stop players taking selfies and behaving like that, then I'd imagine it's Gattuso, who It looks like he doesn't take any nonsense. I like the guy. I mean, I think there should be more managers like that are that passionate and are that fed up with modern footballers. I mean, how long they'll put up with him and how long he'll be able to survive in the modern football world, I don't know. But yeah, I think it's a freak. I mean, we saw Strasbourg beat Paris at the weekend as well, didn't we? So you do get these freak results. I can't see it having much of an impact on Milan's season because I don't really think they're fighting for anything, are they? So a freak result that the goalkeeper will probably remember for a lot longer than anyone else, I'd say.
Fantastic. Well, this actually leads us on nicely to our bite back section where we asked our Facebook group page, what is the most dramatic equaliser you've seen? And credit to everyone on there. They've bombarded the page with their own tales. I mean, Cheeky Rick says Gerrard's 35 yards volley in the 2006 Cup final. Could barely walk, but broke the Hammers' hearts as they were so close. Ryan has actually put up a video of Western Sydney Wanderers against Brisbane Roar in a 5-4 game. He's a Western Sydney Wanderers fan. Giancarlo Benini, World Tour's last-minute equaliser in the Euro 2000 final. Obviously, he's Italian, so he says there's only one winner after that. The golden goal, extra time was brutal. Harry, who's an Arsenal fan, says, I remember enjoying this one, which was Iniesta's equaliser against Chelsea in the Champions League for Barcelona. Bryn Holt says, May 26, 1999, Teddy Sheringham. Let's have a look, got quite loads here. Mike has put up the 4-4 draw between Spurs and Arsenal. He's a Spurs fan. Mike Pieri, 2012 Champions League semi-final, Barcelona-Chelsea. The Gary Neville orgasm goal. Torres scores an injury time to seal the draw. Mark Hughes' volley for United against Oldham in the 94 FA Cup. And the list goes on. I mean, there's so many people responding. It's been absolutely fantastic. Joe Uccello, who's all the way in America, says the Benevento goal says, I think this one is special because the goalkeeper scored it and it is the first point for Benevento in Serie A's history, which is quite impressive. Richard, what's the most dramatic equaliser you've seen, mate? I'm thinking maybe an FA Cup semi-final between Crystal Palace and Liverpool, perhaps?
How did you guess? Yeah, I mean, I was there. It was one of the most. It is the most amazing game I've ever been to, and I've been to 500 odd games because you have to bear in mind that Liverpool beat us 9-0 earlier in the season.
Yep.
They were 1-0 up. They were coasting. You know, at half time, everyone was just discussing whether we were going to keep it to 3 or 4, and then there was that ridiculous second half where we somehow ended up 2-1 up. And then Liverpool scored 2 goals in the 81st and the 85th minute. Well, it's typical, 3-2, out we go. And then up pops Andy Gray and scores the equaliser, goes to extra time. We know what happens after that. I mean, the thing about that game was that all 4 goals we scored were pretty scruffy, but I wouldn't change that for anything. It was the most amazing game I've ever been to, and that equaliser stands out for me as just ridiculous. And the fact is, one of your correspondents points out, the other game, the FA Cup semi-final, was the Man United Oldham game, which ended up 3-3. And that was the first time that the FA Cup semi-finals had been televised. It was televised at the time on the BBC because it was 1990. So you had those 2 semi-finals, a 3-3 and a 4-3, as the first televised FA Cup semi-finals. It's been downhill since.
True, very true. I mean, I remember that Palace game. It's got nostalgia in all over it. It's got a standing. Yeah. It's got the Palace, the blue and red stripes, and Liverpool in their grey kit. It's absolutely fantastic. Yeah. Those were the days, as they said. Rod, most dramatic equaliser, mate.
Oh, it has to be Teddy Sheringham. Teddy Sheringham for me, definitely. Close second, Diego Maradona in 1986 was a great goal too.
Fair enough. Matt?
It has to be Mark Hughes, 1994 FA Cup semi-final at Wembley. That's the one point of this goal which I don't like. It was at Wembley. It was one of those first experiments where they started taking FA Cup semi-finals to Wembley for one reason or another. They tried it, then they stopped it, then they tried it again. But 1994, spring 94, United were flying, and then they seemed to hit the buffers. They had a bad result at Swindon when Cantona got sent off, a bad result at Arsenal when Cantona got sent off, and it looked like they were losing their grip on the league. And then they were playing Oldham in the semi-final at Wembley. Extra time, Neil Poynton scores for Oldham. Injury time of extra time. And to be honest, it looks like United's season's completely fallen apart. But if there's one person you can rely on back then in those days to really dig United out of the hole, and he did it so many times, and in my opinion, he doesn't get enough credit for it. It was Mark Hughes, and it was a throw in on the right hand side. Brian McClare flicked it over his shoulder, sort of generally into the box, and Mark Hughes hit one of his absolute trademark on one leg volleys right into the corner. I was stood behind the goal at Wembley. A lot of people had left. It was one of those where people had thought, well, the game's over. Luckily, me and my mate didn't. We kept the faith, as you did with United back then, because you knew that there was a good chance they were going to do something at the end. And it was a real pivotal turning point for United, really. It obviously went to a replay, as it did back then, and United won the replay convincingly. I think it was 4-0 or 4-1, and then went on to win the double. And but in the scheme of things, that goal was you just knew coming out of the ground that day that it had changed. It had broken Oldham's heart. They knew that was the only chance they were going to have to beat United. And if United had lost that game, you get the feeling they could have easily slipped up in the league, because I think it was Blackburn chasing them down at the time, just before they went on to win it the following season. But just for pure drama and that era for United doing that, and players like Hughes popping up at the right time, it was that was my personal favourite. But I agree with you that the Palace Liverpool and then the United Oldham of 1990 was a fantastic day of football. I just thought I could watch both those games over and over and over again. I just thought they were two great games. But I'm going to plump for the Hughes goal in '94.
Great stuff. Right, Richard, Messi is arguably Argentina's greatest ever footballer, but the statue in Buenos Aires has been vandalized for a second time, and I know the statue was actually chopped off from the ankles, leaving the actual body on the floor. Why do you think something like that would happen twice? I mean, it doesn't seem normal, does it?
Well, no. I mean, Messi's not a sort of guy who attracts too much hate, is he? I mean, I can see Ronaldo would attract hate, and there's that ridiculous statue at some, is it in Funchal? I think at the airport.
Yeah.
Anything like him. But I think the only explanation I can think of is that people, were hacked off with Messi because he hasn't actually done it for Argentina at quite the same level as he's done it for Barcelona. Although, let's face it, he dug them out of a massive hole by scoring a hat-trick in the last qualifying game to get to the World Cup. And he did miss a penalty, didn't he, in a South American Cup, I think just a year or two ago, that they lost to Chile. So whether these people really bear a grudge against Messi, quite frankly, is one of the most fantastic footballers I've ever seen in my life, it seems bizarre that they would have that grudge against someone like him. And if it's down to the fact that he hasn't quite done it for Argentina, then become an England fan, see how that feels.
That's a very, very fair point, mate. Very fair point. Rhodri, a fella that you know, Tom Greaves, was recently appointed FC United manager, and we spoke about it the other week, and he scored his 100th goal for the club at the weekend, a landmark goal for a very special club.
Yeah, it was a great moment for him. Obviously, he's player manager and he's been given the job full time, which is good news for him and the club, because he seems to have turned it round. But yeah, that heroic path for 99 for a good few years now, and I couldn't think of anyone better to break it, because he's a fantastic lad. You know, people say nice people don't last in football. Well, he's doing a pretty good job at the moment, and he's a great lad. I just wish him luck and good fortune in the future.
Do you think he can make the grade higher up in the leagues, mate, as a manager?
Well, he's made a good start. He's got all the qualifications. He's got an academy that he runs there in Leeds somewhere with his family, and he's doing a fantastic job. You know, Harrogate Town are a full-time outfit, and the second in the league behind Salford, and he's beaten 3-2 and beat him comfortably by the looks of it, and it was a great result. And like I say, he's changed results around there. Everyone's on the up, everyone's buzzing, and it seems like it was a good appointment by the club.
So do you think they'll back him in the summer? I know the club hasn't got that much money, but how do you think they'll do next season?
It's going to be difficult, mate. It's always going to be difficult there because they haven't got a lot of money, even though they get big crowds. There's a lot of payments that are going out to certain different people, but the new executives come in. He seems to have cleaned out the old and come in with a new, and it's working out well for him. But with the funds and the funds in that league, it's going to be difficult for him. But like I say, he's going with the youth. To the 3 academy lads that I brought through, that I coached 2 years, he's give them an extra extended contract, so he's playing them regularly. He's come, which is good for the fans, and obviously great for the club because they don't have to pay much money for them. It's a great experience for the lads, and they've got the potential to go on to league clubs, which potentially could make the club a little bit of money too. So he's doing all the right things, and he's got a great start, like I said.
It's good to hear, mate. It's good to hear.
Yeah.
Right, before we wrap up the show, just one more quick story. I'm not sure if you guys have seen this, but a pitch invasion like no other took place during a youth league match in the United Arab Emirates. Now, someone driving what looks like a VW Beetle drove on the pitch from one side, crossed the halfway line and did a U-turn around about the final third, and then went the way it came back in. Fortunately, the driver didn't hit anyone. That's probably one of the most bizarre pitch invasions I've ever seen. I don't want to ask you guys because, Matt, I'm sure you've seen quite a few. And Richard, saying that, you watch football in the 80s, attending games, I'm sure you've seen a lot.
Yeah, no, I've never seen a car on the pitch. I've seen a few fans on the pitch, but I did see that clip, and it's quite terrifying because he's driving quite quickly and he gets quite close to the players who seem to be quite calm about the fact there's a car zooming around the pitch at about 30 miles an hour and within an inch of their limbs. So, yeah, one of the strange things I've seen, and as you say, I've seen a few pitch invasions. I think probably the one I remember most was Palace winning a playoffs final when they used to play them as 2 legs in 1989 against Blackburn, and the whole pitch was swamped. Unfortunately, the ref hadn't blown the whistle yet, so I had to do that clearing the pitch thing again. But yeah, no, the game's gone, isn't it, when you're allowing cars on the pitch?
Yeah, I don't know how they even got in, actually, to be honest. Mind you, it was quite open, wasn't it? So, yeah.
It wasn't Jose driving it, was it?
No, you would have brought the bus.
Yeah, no, that's what I was going to say.
Great stuff. Well, gents, it's been an absolute pleasure having you all on. Richard, do you want to give our listeners your Twitter handle and maybe just remind them where they can get your book from?
Yeah, Twitter handle is @RC Foster. The book is Football's Flaws and Foibles. You can get it at Amazon, Warstones, all those sort of places. It's published by Oakley Books. Yeah, and it's available $9.99, and it'll fit very snugly into your Christmas stocking.
Fantastic. Matt, Twitter handle?
Yeah, at Matthew J. Crist, and the website is matthewcrist.co.uk.
Excellent. What's the latest article?
I'm doing one for this weekend on the famous game when Dennis Law backheels the ball into the net for City and allegedly sends United down in 1974, although it didn't really send them down because Norwich and Birmingham were played and results didn't go United's way anyway. So United would have been relegated, but the story is that Dennis Law relegated United, but he didn't really.
Nonsense. I'll say nonsense. Rod?
And if you ask him personally, he'll probably punch you.
Yeah, but I didn't. So
is this based on experience, Rod?
No, I've been somewhere where someone's asked him and he's given a really look as if to say, "Ask me that again, I'm going to punch you."
Well, he was very upset about it, wasn't he? I mean, I know it didn't make any difference in the end, but I mean, he was.
Yeah, he's a professional, obviously, and obviously his love with United and not City, and.
But he was taken off. He was so upset and shaken up after the goal.
Yeah.
He was taken straight off. He never played again in league football. So
yeah, he obviously still affects him today. So that's why he doesn't want to speak about it.
Yeah, well,
but
luckily for him, I emphasised the point that it wasn't his goal that sent United down. So
yeah, well, he'll always be the original king at Old Trafford. So
absolutely.
Matt, you can use that soundbite from Rod at the end of your article and say, if you ask him, he'll punch you.
Well, I've got a quote from him at the end of the article, and he says something like, for 19 years he was trying to score goals, and that was the one goal in 19 years that he wished hadn't gone in. So backs up what Rod says, really, that he didn't want to score it, but he did, and it's the way it goes.
But you've got to respect him with his professionality and doing his job.
I still think the keeper had a bit of a mare the way it went in. I mean, what Stepney was doing, I don't know, because it was only travelling at about 2 miles an hour when he flicked it back. But yeah, I won't upset him either by blaming him.
Great stuff. Rod, Twitter handle, mate?
Rod James Giggs. @ Rod James Giggs.
Great stuff. And do you want to give that chippy one more shout just in case?
Wilson Road. Highly recommended.
Excellent. Wonderful. Right, we're on Twitter @ Shoot the Defence. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Thanks, guys, for coming on the show. And for you guys listening, we'll be back sometime soon. Take care.